So where the hell have I been? Nowhere really. At home because Overwatch 2 dropped and I have been absolutely throttling noobs. Platinum rank 4, get on my fucking level. I've also been at the gym. Oh yeah, there's also college and I went 15 rounds with seasonal depression. But I don't fucking lose. But hey, no better time to come back than today, so why the fuck not? Let's get into it.
Kink communities in the gay world aren't just like, oh, let's just do kink and do like spicy stuff, right? Although it can involve that. They are literal communities. There is a reason why, as an example, communities like the leather communities have survived for such a long time. Beyond the idea of it just being kink, it's a full-on community. Gaining is very, very similar, but just most people who are not involved did not know about it because it was very underground. Within the umbrella of gaining, there are different kinds of gainers. There are different kinds of people who like to gain weight in different kinds of ways. Sometimes muscle, sometimes fat. Sometimes they just maintain the way that they are and they don't actually gain any weight, but they're still under the umbrella. Sometimes people are encouragers or people who just are admirers of people who are larger. There's a lot of overlap with the bears, which is how I was exposed to the community at first. And so many of my friends are gainers. So many of my friends are involved within the community. So when I say the things I say about Ricardo Avocado, I'm not speculating. I have a direct connection to him, which is very weird to say. It's not something I'm proud of, not because it's gaining, but because it's Ricardo Avocado. And it's because of him that a lot of younger people have been exposed to the idea of gaining, and because he specifically wants to make it look weird and humiliating, they think that's all it is. It can be very empowering if you do it the right way.
You know, I was watching this video and up until this point I had no issues. To think it can be empowering. For those who don't know, what he's talking about is the gainer community. In kink circles, gaining refers to the kink that involves people receiving sexual satisfaction from the process of eating and gaining weight. Now, I want to know exactly what is so empowering about increasing your chances of a list of conditions so long that they could fill the yellow pages. Nothing. It's not empowering. Let's be real here. If you're into this kink, you're not doing it to empower yourself or to empower others. You're doing it because it makes your genitals froth. And that's a good enough reason. Fuck all this talk about liberation and empowerment and whatever the fuck. It rustles your jimmies and you like that. There's nothing empowering about a kink that can and has resulted in death and rehabilitation.
So I found that a lot of people are pushing back on critique about the whale, saying that it's not fatphobic because it shows the realities of obesity. That in itself is the problem, because there is no one reality of obesity.
Interesting rebuttal, but you're correct. There's also no one reality of chemotherapy, but a depiction of cancer patients as sickly and bald is still accurate despite it not showing cancer patients in the best light. Are there cancer patients who are bright-faced and healthy-looking? Sure, professional wrestler Roman Reigns is a great example. In this photo, he announces his leukemia diagnosis. This is a photo a few months later after he puts it into remission. That's a cool story, very inspiring, but for every Roman Reigns, there's someone who gets diagnosed with the same condition who ends up losing their hair and a ton of weight. Should we start complaining about the depictions of cancer patients as sickly now? The same goes for those who are incredibly obese. Can you find someone who is living comfortably at 600 pounds? Relatively. But for every person like that, how many 600 plus pound people are suffering daily because of the massive amount of weight?
Obese in itself is a word that we should not be using to talk about fatness, because not all obese people are fat actually. Obese is a BMI classifier, and it is now widely accepted that BMI is not actually an adequate measure of health, nor is it a really great way to determine size of a person.
I'm so sick of hearing this. Firstly, calculate your BMI. If your BMI is obese and you look at yourself and you can see you're not 200 plus pounds of twisted steel and sex appeal, you're obese. Do you think doctors are just going to use BMI and not their fucking eyes? There's a difference between someone being 240 pounds of muscle and 240 pounds of gravy. Secondly, the BMI is a useful rule of thumb for a majority of people. Contrary to what you see in Hollywood, men who look like Chris Hemsworth are rare, and women who look like Iris Kyle are even rarer. Renasing and others 2013 studied over 1,000 adults and showed that while BMI is not perfect in predicting fat mass, it correlates with it pretty well at a population level. Third and finally, this is not at all an attempt to body shame you, I fucking promise, but do you own a mirror? Do you think your high BMI is a result of super dense bones and a fuck ton of muscle? Be real.
There are people who are average sized, if not thin, who are BMI wise classified as obese. As there are obese Olympians, as there are obese, like fat people, super fat people, people who are 600 pounds, right? It isn't really an adequate word to like describe all of those different people. By look standards, by health wise, by set, like it doesn't really make sense to use that as a signifier of like really anything. If you want to say that this movie is showing the reality of fatness, of being in a body that is 600 pounds, I still would push back on that.
Well, why? Why would you push back against that? Do we not have enough video evidence from over 100 episodes of My 600-Pound Life that being that obese can make people's lives miserable?
But if we're sticking to your original words, that is the realities of obesity, like everything is the reality of obesity, because obesity looks like literally everything. There are disabled people who are obese. There are Olympians who are obese.
The movie was about his life as a result of his obesity. Often being super morbidly obese does significantly affect people's lives. That's reality. Let's say I wanted to make a movie, and in it, the main character is suffering because he has gonorrhea. Would it not be idiotic to say, oh, well, Mike Tyson won a world championship with gonorrhea. Why don't you tell a story like that? Yup.
If you're trying to say that the movie is showing the realities of fatness, I would say again, there are lots of different realities of fatness. That's why we use the fatness spectrum to talk about fatness, as well as accounting for things like race, sexuality, gender, etc. But genuinely, what I think those comments boil down to is people are saying that it is the reality of living in a disabled 600-pound body. And that is not for me to comment on, because I am not a disabled 600-pound man. But when you conflate that experience with that of all fat people, or that of all disabled people, or that of all obese people, you're doing a disservice to all of those people.
I agree. Now, is the person who said that the whale portrays the lives of all obese people in the room with us now?
And my biggest concern is that the movie does a disservice to disabled 600+ pound people. Not because of the story itself, not because of the facts of the story, but because of the editing and the framing of the story. Some examples of this are the sad music playing over a montage of Charlie getting ready for bed. There are film techniques used to make you feel badly about this man using a loofah on a stick or using certain mobility aids. That is ableist, and that is fatphobic, and that is indisputable.
Wow. The sad music over a man who is saddened by his condition is ableist. It's now ableist to imply that the difficulties in life brought on by disability can make people sad.
Hi, my name is Mara. My pronouns are they, them, and this comment is factually incorrect. So let's talk about the actual numbers. Right now, people who are fatphobic justify that fat phobia by using one thing: our health. They're just worried about our health because we're going to die, apparently before the age of 50. So assuming that life expectancy wasn't really an issue, what would they have left to justify their hate? So I'm sure that we're all aware that lots of things can affect life expectancy. For example, short people don't live as long as tall people. People who have a longer commute don't live as long as people who work from home. People who own dogs live longer than people who don't. So right now the assumption is that even though there are a lot of controllable factors that can influence one's life expectancy and health, fatness is a big one. It has such a large effect that it specifically needs to be addressed. So let's get the base numbers out of the way. Average life expectancy in the US today is about 79 to 83 years old. I'm going to use medical slurs here because it's statistics. So obese people, so people like me, live to about 78 years old. People who are in the overweight category live to about 82 years old. and thin people live to about 81 years old. That's only about 4 years, folks. My question is, if you're truly just concerned about people's health, why are you not addressing actual real health concerns? Emotional strain or chronic stress shortens life by about 3 years. Not only that, it can trigger things like diabetes, because diabetes is a trauma-related issue, high blood pressure, heart attack, stroke. Are fat people under chronic stress? I think so. Then let's also talk about the fact that fat phobia and fat shaming can cause chronic loneliness, which can shorten life expectancy about as much as smoking. A difficult childhood reduces lifespan by about 20 years. This is referencing ACEs scores such as child abuse, child neglect, things like that. If you're concerned with health or life expectancy, treating people well is the best thing you can do. What do you really want to spend your time doing?
First of all, cite your sources. Secondly, this is the worst analysis I've ever seen. Every professor who has ever taught statistics wants to throw tomatoes at you, and so do I. Let me explain. Early studies into BMI and lifespan fail to account for confounders. This is important for two reasons. One, behaviors affect health. If I want to see how a certain behavior affects health or lifespan, I need to control for behaviors, i.e. smoking, drinking, eating habits, exercise habits and intensity, etc. Two, illnesses can result in weight changes. The second issue is obese as just one category, when in reality it's a wide range of people. It's legit just everyone who has a BMI over 30. That includes very muscular dudes who are a little chubby, and people who are on my 600-pound life. The result is the average lifespan is being brought up by the people who are just a little chubby. The problem should be obvious. We are expected to believe being 215 pounds and 615 pounds will result in the same loss in years of life. No, that's absurd. This study by Kitahara and colleagues looked at the effects of Class 3 obesity has on lifespan in 3 different groups of Class 3 obese individuals, using data from 20 studies across multiple countries. They also controlled for behaviors such as smoking and a history of chronic illness. This study specifically focused on Class 3 obese individuals, which is anybody with a BMI 20 points and above. I made this graph to summarize the results. As you can see, as BMI goes up, the lifespan drops, with men who have a BMI 30 to 34.9 points above normal having over 17 years taken off their lives. 17 years. Now, if I just lump all those groups together, it would drop this number. Now, obesity doesn't look as unhealthy, wouldn't it? The final thing in your video is just a bunch of whataboutism. Well, this affects lifespan, and so does this and that. Great, so does obesity. Now let's deal with all of those things. Hey y'all, Hotep here. The video is using copyrighted music, so I had to mute it. It's also Taylor Swift, so it was going to be muted either way. But I'll read what it says. Quote, when you are at a medical conference and you say, what if we stopped recommending weight loss as a cure for medical conditions since weight is not a behavior? First of all, I'm pretty sure all the actual medical professionals would say, who are you? And how did you get in here? Please humble yourself. None of these certifications you have would even permit you to breathe in a room that had a medical conference 2 days ago, let alone speak at one. You're a Boy Scout talking down to Marines. Relax. Secondly, you know what else isn't a behavior? Dehydration. Does that mean doctors should stop telling people to drink water? No, that would be silly.
So what we're not doing in 2023 is still acting like fat people are unhealthy just because they're fat.
They are.
If you don't understand fat phobia enough to understand the medical biases that prevent fat people from getting actual, decent health care, You don't even understand the tip of the friggin' iceberg. I am not going to talk to you. I am not going to argue with you. Do something to unlearn fat phobia. Learn about how it is tied into racism and leave fat people the fuck alone.
Lack of medical care results in people not being treated for conditions, but it does not explain why fat people are more likely to have those conditions to begin with. Let me give you an example. I have one population of shitty drivers and one population of good drivers. In the shitty driving population, more people die of car accidents. Now, is it possible in my population with shitty drivers, the doctors paid less attention to them because of their driving habits? Sure, and that might go to explain a portion of their excess deaths. But it doesn't explain why they experience more car accidents to begin with.
One thing about me is I was on Dr. Phil to talk about fat phobia. Can you help me?
Sure. One thing about me is I was on Dr. Phil.
Okay. One thing about me is I was on Dr. Phil to talk about fat phobia. Can you just do it?
Sure. One thing about her is that she was on Dr. Phil, got flown out to LA, stayed in Hollywood, got a ride to the Paramount lot where she killed. All the producers had planned to have her on so that she could tell her experience. Suddenly, Phil decided he didn't want that. He wanted to fight, period. Said that she denied the science even though the studies show that he was wrong. Had a doctor on to talk about outlying cases that don't apply at all. 4 people helped him out, but she backed him down. Because he didn't know the caliber of woman he got when Lexi came around.
Hey! Oh, you were there too?
One thing about me is that I was there too, but that isn't the point, because I watched you go on Dr. Phil and take him to school.
I love you.
I love you.
Hello, my audience. I deeply apologize for the video we just watched. I wasn't going to include it because it was just that bad, but suffering alone is just no fun. I hope you all accept my apology. With that being said, I want to end this video off with something positive. I asked previously for you guys to send me some before and after photos because, hey, you might inspire someone. Hell, you inspired me. Oh, by the way, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at HotepFlotep. Alright, here we have this queen's before and after. What I really appreciate is that in both, she's fucking getting at it. That's something you don't see a lot. I absolutely love this woman's vibe. She has lost over 40 pounds so far, and if you are interested, her Instagram handle is thickest.chickest. You know your boy Hotep loves hitting the iron, and I especially love to see women doing it because unfortunately there are a lot of widespread myths that keep women from wanting to lift that heavy ass weight. Here we have 23 years worth of weight maintenance, something that's supposedly impossible. And if I may add, Lord Jesus, she's over 40. Maybe I should start investing in skincare. Here we have something a little different. I can tell someone has been hitting the weight room and getting under that bench. This motherfucker here put in all the work necessary to lose over 100 pounds. A phenomenal accomplishment that you should always be proud of and talk about whenever the fuck you want. This woman has lost over 50 pounds with a moderate calorie deficit and daily walks. Listen, y'all, do not underestimate cardio. It doesn't have to be hill sprints or jogging until your shoes lose their tread. Walking is great cardio and it's relaxing as hell, especially if you're tuned out with nothing but some music. Nothing beats it except lifting weights. This person's story touched me for more than one reason. One, they gained some weight after lockdown, something that happened to a lot of people, and when she was knocked down, she brushed herself off and got right back to work. They also told me a story about how they stayed away from fitness because of trauma, and I realized on this channel I never reached out to those struggling with EDs or those who avoid fitness and dieting because of trauma and or past EDs. Listen, it's perfectly okay to struggle, but it's also okay to need help. If you know you need to lose weight or get your ass in shape but can't because of trauma, I say don't go to the gym just yet. Don't count a single calorie either. Bury your head in research in order to find that help you need in order to do the things that will improve your physical well-being without resulting in decreased mental well-being. And when I say get help, that doesn't just mean mental health professionals. It could be family, friends, a hotline, a group. Hell, some people get the most help from religious figures. Hell, shop around and try your best to get support from more than one of the previous sources I mentioned. You got this, and you got nothing but time. My boy here has dropped 17 kilos and abandoned the McDonald's drive-thru. I swear to God, they put crack in those McChickens. This queen here has dropped over 100 pounds after getting out of fat acceptance mindset and realizing, oh shit, if I put my mind to it, I can actually do what all these sad people were telling me I couldn't. With that being said, I want you all to take care of yourselves, drink water, don't skip legs, and I'll catch you on the flip.